is Steve Fisher. I'm from Citibank. I'll be the moderator of today's panel, which is going to be this panel for this morning's second session, which is focused on agriculture and the organic industry. And I will be introducing our panelists in a second. We're very excited to be talking about agriculture because of all the economic sectors in Ukraine, agriculture remains one of the most exciting, one of the most successful, and one of the sectors in the economy with the greatest growth potential for the country and for the people, and with global implications, no less, when we think about food security. So we're very excited to have this panel today. Let me now introduce our fellow panelists. On my far right, we have Mykola Kowalski. He's the Director of Marketing for Astarta Corporation. And next to Mykola is Taras Vysotsky, who is the General Director of the Ukrainian Agriculture Business Club. And next to Taras, we have John Schmorhun, who's President of AgroGeneration Company. And to my left is Claude Expert, who is the CEO and founder of Biologic. So we've got a good variety of speakers today with different perspectives. And what we want to talk about, what's on our mind, is where is the future investment going to go in the agricultural sector? What are the key themes and important aspects of this economic sector that we need to focus on? And what are the challenges facing us going forward? So today we're going to hear from a variety of different aspects of business in the sector and different perspectives. And I think what we'll do is we'll just have each person talk about their own company and what they see and the various themes they're focused on, and then we'll have question and answer for everyone. So without further ado, I think I'll just start in order. I'll pass it to Mykola Kowalski, who's the Director of Marketing of Astarta, who can get us started today. So Mykola, turn it to you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm working for Astarta for already 10 years, and I will show you a short presentation about our company and where we see future for the segment. Could we please load presentation? The key of this presentation would be what business could do to respond to the challenges which a country is facing. In the previous panel, we heard that a lot should be done for development of civil society, Ukrainian economy, etc. So Astarta is a very good example of successful business. Now we are operating in almost half of Ukrainian regions, and Astarta is a company which is leading in sugar, which is leading in soybean crushing, and leading in milk production. Through last 10 years, Astarta invested almost $500 million in development of its businesses. It's farming, sugar, bean processing, and dairy. And what are results of this? Sugar production grew annually more than 10%, and we tripled this. Crop production went in 10 years from more than 100,000 tons to almost 1 million. We built a brand new soybean crushing plant and achieved a lot in milk production. Few words about the successful project of Astarta. It's a bioenergy complex which we built in Poltava region. And this is a facility which is closely connected to another production assets of the company. It's not only project in bioenergy which we have. There are other companies like Mironivka, like another competitive company built in Rokitne in Kiev Oblast and another plant. But what Astarta did is the biggest facility of such kind in Ukraine with capacity of 12 megawatt. This bioenergy complex is linked to sugar plant and it's linked to soybean processing and supplies biogas to these two facilities. Currently, we are working on another step, and we would be building on this biogas with producing of green electricity and green heat energy. So already this month we got, it already is in Poltava, the first electricity unit of 2 megawatt from 12, which should be operational already this year. Another particular thing about this facility is that it not only produces energy and heat, it is provides for waste utilization. And we are already receiving different wastes from our businesses which are located nearby. Another opportunity is open for us with a new law which was recently adopted that we could sell heat which is generated by this bioenergy facility with competitive price. Few words about corporate social responsibility. Big agricultural companies like Astarta, like AgroGeneration and others, sometimes are presented as maybe not evil, but they are posted as something which contradicts small farming. What we are saying that companies like ours invest a lot of efforts and a lot of money into development of local communities, into development of infrastructure. And if we see how much taxes, how much salaries companies like Astarta pay here to the different stakeholders, including the state, our opinion is that the role of such big and successful companies is very important. So this is a short presentation about Astarta, and maybe later on I would be happy to answer your questions. Thank you.
Mikola, thank you very much for your presentation. Obviously, I think there'll be many questions to you and to the other participants about the future of biogas, biofuel, energy efficiency, what helps build this sector, and where can this sector develop in the future. Let's keep talking about individual companies and their perspectives, and then I think we'll focus on Taras at the end, since he represents the Ukrainian Agribusiness Club and probably has a broader perspective on what he sees in the overall sector. So we'll continue company by company. To my immediate right is John Shmurhun from AgroGeneration. So John, perhaps you can give us your thoughts about what's the key focus in the agricultural sector from your company's point of view.
Okay. Hello? Can you hear me? No? Yeah? Okay, great. My name is John Shmurhun. I'm the president of AgroGeneration, SA. It's a publicly traded company in France. For me to talk about the future, I need to talk a little bit about the history. AgroGeneration is not a company I started with. I actually started with a company called Sigma Blazer with investments of about 85 million euros in 2009. We built up a company of about 70,000 hectares, pure crop producing company in the eastern part of Ukraine. And as part of our strategy to diversify crop producing regions and climate, we found a company called AgroGeneration with which we merged. We made a reverse merger in 2013. Now, the reverse merger went extremely well, but what didn't go extremely well was Ukraine at the time, because as you know, the Maidan, the Revolution of Dignity, started in the fall of 2013 into 2014. So what I want to talk about is some of the challenges that we faced and how we were able to get out from under those to become the successful company today. 2014, of course, post-merger, heavily debt-laden company, AgroGeneration, which we became. We were challenged by integrating a massive integration effort into a 120,000 hectare agricultural company during a time of very high inflation, Maidan, etc. We saw the hryvnia collapse by 75%, etc. If our results, EBITDA results in 2013 post-merger were catastrophic, mostly due to the integration with AgroGeneration, our results were minus 24 million EBITDA. The results in 2014, after a massive turnaround, were positive 20 million EBITDA. And this was done because of a rigorous optimization of the company, uniting of IT systems, bringing in common crop technology and things like that. A massive turnaround of a company in Ukraine is not so easy to do. But if you have all the things right, you operate transparently, you speak to the market, as we did to the public market, of what you are doing, what you're planning to do, and the market responds to that, you know, a company can do extremely well in Ukraine. So 2014, 2015, because of the heavy debt that we had incurred, we restructured the company in France. 63 million euros of debt restructured in bonds. Very successful, very quick restructuring of the company. It took 3 months for us. We cleaned up the balance sheet. Results also, 20 million euro EBITDA, also in 2015, which is also a big achievement. And I'm very happy to report, we just reported our results of 2016 last month. Again, $20 million EBITDA. Now, what does this say? It says two things. Companies in Ukraine can be, those who are not healthy, can be brought to health and become very successful companies. It's not an easy achievement, and you can do that even in the environment in which we work today. It also says a lot about agriculture in and of itself, that in a time of collapsing crop prices, which started after 2013, that was also the other challenge, and they remain today very low, that in a time of collapsing crop prices, well-run agricultural companies in Ukraine can achieve 30, 35, 40% EBITDA margins year upon year. So I think the good news is that agriculture is a really crisis buster for Ukraine. And I think companies like well-run companies, I'm just not just talking about ourselves, we look at companies like Astarta or MHP. These are companies that really set an example of how to do business well. So I'm sure we'll get into that more in the panel discussion, but that's kind of what I wanted to say. Thanks.
But I'm curious, and I'm sure all of you are. Thank you, John. John, tell us, what products does AgroGeneration produce? Where do you sell? And where is the future of your company going?
First of all, we're a pure crop producing company, unlike Astarta, who is integrated into sugar beet production and soy. We grow commodity crops and we sell them. Now, about 50% of our crops are sold or exported in the market today. Primary exports through traders go to the Middle East, they go to the Far East. China is becoming a big market for Ukrainian companies. So is India, so is North Africa. Some of the products go into the European Union. For example, rapeseed go into the European Union. Now, we of course realize as a company that the future is not, I mean, we're relatively new, but the future is not just pure commodity. Although commodity crops are a good business, the future can be in processing as well. We as a company intend to grow. We just returned from a pretty extensive trip in Korea and in China, where, by the way, which is kind of unexpected on our part, where the issue of GMO came up. And as you know, Ukraine is a non-GMO producing country by law. It conforms to EU doctrine. And this is an extremely big play for those markets, that the market for non-GMO products continues to grow. So I was a bit surprised by that, but coming from the United States, which is a very large GMO producing country, having this sort of a niche in the middle of Europe is actually quite important for Ukraine today.
Thank you, John. I'm going to now turn to Claude Exbriet, the CEO and founder of Biologic. Now, Biologic is a company that's not in mainstream crop production. Very different approach, and in some regards, the future of the agricultural sector in Ukraine. So, Claude, maybe you can tell us what your company is doing and what you're focusing on in the future.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Claude Exbriet. I am indeed the French founder of Biologic.ua. Biologic.ua was created 2 years ago, and we are basically a logistics and a distribution center for organic products. We are still a very small company. We are a startup. We created the company a little bit more than 2 years ago now. We have only 17 employees, but still today we are the main distributor of organic products in Ukraine. Please don't ask me statistics about organics in Ukraine. They do not exist. So this gives you an idea of what is organic in the country. It's still a very small market. To compare to Europe, well, think what was France or Germany 30 or 40 years ago. Still, we consider that organic sector should be a huge market for new Ukraine. Ukraine has fantastic soil, has a tradition of agriculture, cheap labor, proximity to the largest markets, and therefore we think that organic should be the paradise for in Ukraine. Today, you will have the possibility to see some of the product that we distribute because we have a stand near the terrace. We are distributing food, of course, also drinks, alcohol, cosmetics. Our clients are mainly hypermarkets like Auchan, Mega Market, organic small shops. Also, we supply the largest internet shops like Rosetka. Today, I would say that creating a startup in Ukraine is probably a big challenge, but we see a huge perspective in this market with very highly qualified people, even if sometimes the standards are different from the ones that we have in Europe, with some support and experience from US or Europe. I think we can bring these people to a very high level.
I've got questions. I've got questions for Claude. The first thing I was asking myself is, Claude, can this business be profitable in Ukraine? And what do you need to do to make it profitable? And the second thing that came to my mind right away is the Ukrainian consumer. Is the Ukrainian consumer the same as a European or American consumer, or is there something different vis-a-vis organics? Maybe you can share your thoughts.
Very interesting questions. I would have to speak about this for hours. First of all, the consumers are for sure completely different. They expect different products, and unfortunately, organic today is something that do not necessarily have a very good image in Ukraine because of a lot of unclear stories, I would call it politely. Therefore, the main task of our company was to establish confidence. And the fact that I'm a foreigner is helping to this, especially as I'm French. So the connection to food is naturally made. So the point of confidence is very important. As regards profitability, unfortunately, we do not expect to be profitable before still some time. As I mentioned it, we started this project about 2 years ago. If we start to be profitable within 2 years, we will be very happy. Still, today we are in a position of pioneers for the distribution in the country, and I guess it will, in the end, give us a very good advantage to future competitors.
Thank you very much, Claude, on that. Now I'd like to widen the discussion, and there's no one better to help us do that than Taras Vysotsky, who's, as I mentioned before, the General Director of the Ukrainian Agribusiness Club. Taras, you see everything. Tell us what you think is the big picture in the agricultural sector. What are the trends that you look at? And you know what? We're all interested to get your views, not just yours, but everyone's, on the big question of land reform. So, Taras, over to you.
Thank you, Stephen. As usual, the hardest questions to the side of the association. Just each speaker started with some history. I would like also to announce that this year our association celebrates 10th anniversary, so all of you please join this September. About the agricultural sector, it's true that almost each agricultural company has been profitable the last 3 years. It's true the percentage mentioned by John, but still, of course, it's not enough to double the GDP growth from 2.4 to 4.8. But nevertheless, we all understand that the almost only hope is for agriculture. If you look at the average share of agriculture in GDP. Agriculture of Ukraine with the availability of investment can grow in two main directions. The producer still can increase the volume of production, taking also into account the crops mentioned by John, the sugar and other products. They can increase this volume, but to increase it, they do need the agricultural land market. I will say some things about the reform later, but they do need it. They need it in the south of our country to move in the irrigation. They need it in also central and western and northern part to make more investments in the land, so the volume can be increased, and they need for this agricultural land reform. And in other directions, the value can be increased. In this respect, the producers can move without agricultural land reform in theory. They can move in niche directions like organic. They can move in other crops. They can move in processing, like we mentioned, sugar, energy, vertical integrations. Of course, the value can be also increased. And if we come back to the agricultural land market reform, I think that all of us are currently looking at the going discussions. Actually, indeed, within these months, the government is obligated to introduce the agricultural land market law, it's how to say it. And depending on the issues described in this law and adopted by the parliament, we will see either really very fast growing of the sector, and it can, believe us, it can be more than 5% per year, or we can see the same level or even worse stagnations. So I won't focus on the issues discussed, because actually the current ones which have been announced unofficially, of course, are not the best one for the attraction of investments. But we, like members of our associations, the companies presented here, still believe that if the agricultural land reform is completed, it is completed in a view of attracting investments. That means that the open and transparent agricultural land market is going to be introduced. And what's important, that I can also ask the questions to you, with the integration of banks. Because anyway, agricultural producers, our domestic producers, have some resources. They do make these investments. But it's not enough for these booming investments. Anyway, banks, directly or indirectly, investment funds are going to be attracted. And that's why our position is, if the agricultural land market is going to be opened, it should be liberalized, opened, and transparent in order to stimulate the growth by really this 10-15%. And if we have 10, 15, 20% in agriculture, this means at least 5-7% of the overall GDP, because agriculture creates from 20 to 40% directly or indirectly of our economy.
Ross, thank you. Talking about banks, do you think that the remaining 80 or so banks in Ukraine understand the agricultural sector to the degree they should?
I would say that today it's very popular at this conference to mention the 3 or 5 years ago. Of course, now the level of understanding is much better than it was, again, 3 or 5 years ago. Of course, at some points it is still not enough, not sufficient, but we fully agree that as soon as the conditions are created for the quick growth of the investments from the side of banks, the understanding will grow and will be better very soon. So for our side now, the preconditions for the cooperation of agricultural producers and banks on the side of states, again this land market reform and others, are not enough to stimulate the growing of the cooperation. So not enough stimulates to invest from the side of banks, in this understanding, and not enough demand from the side of agricultural producers to push the banks to develop. But again, when this reform is implemented, that's first of all the growing demand from the side of agricultural producers and the possibility to attract investments will stimulate the banks to invest in their personnel, in their human capacity, and in this understanding and in general joint cooperation.
Okay, I get it. But Taras, I think every single person in this audience is asking this question. Do you expect some form of land reform this year?
Of course, no other chance. If we are going to organize another agricultural panel discussion on investments forum next year, we will have nothing to talk about if we don't make this reform this year.
Okay, this will be discussed between our other panelists in a minute. Okay, great. Thank you to all the panelists. Now let's go into some other interesting topics. We just were talking about banking and the financial support for the sector, but something that's very close to that is foreign direct investment, FDI. And you know, one of the companies here, Astarta, just recently sold 30% or so of their shares to the very big Canadian investment firm Fairfax. So wouldn't we all like to know from Mikola, why did Astarta do this deal? What was really interesting about Astarta to attract such a large investment from Canada?
Yeah, thank you, Steve. Look, there are maybe a few things which are very important about this investment. First of all, investment of Fairfax into the company is regarded as a quality mark. And I could tell you that before doing this investment, we were being studied by Fairfax members in different areas. Actually, I'm now from time to time surprised when I speak to people in the government or in media that before investing in Astarta, they were asked about us, partners, whatever. So the key here is that company should be right to be invested in by Fairfax or maybe by Blazer Foundation, and company has to be good quality. Another thing which is common for Astarta and other good businesses that it is not only size. Company should be efficient, and if you might see some news about our company, you could mention that the key word which we use, it is not only media releases, but it's the core of our company is getting more and more efficient. John mentioned here that since 2013, prices for agricultural commodities are low. And to survive in these conditions, to be profitable, to have good margins, we need to improve every year, to do better, to squeeze our cost. Another very important thing is to be transparent and to have a good reputation. I might be mistaken, and I'm coming now out of area of Astarta. I'm speaking about a lot of agricultural businesses which started and failed in Ukraine. I wouldn't name this, but they were big and small. And in my view, the key problem of these companies were that people just came to make easy money. That's number one. And number two, I can't tell about all people who were managing this company, but probably many of them were stealing money from these companies. And this is, of course, not right. Particular thing about businesses like Astarta, like AgroGeneration, and many others is that we came here not for a couple of years. We came here for decades. And that's probably what attracted Fairfax in our company. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you. That's very good. I honestly think that Astarta attracting this investment, that was one of the big successes of the agricultural sector last year. John, from AgroGeneration's point of view, you had recently done a big trip to Asia to assess foreign direct investment interest in the agricultural sector. What did you learn from your trip?
Well, first of all, I would say that when you talk about the Far East, you talk about large, very highly populated countries. We happened to visit Korea and China. In the past, we've visited the Middle East. We visited Japan. And I think the key that these countries understand for themselves is, regardless of food prices today, the issue of global food security is only going to get worse. Population is growing. We're going to see 9 billion people in the next 20 years. And how are you going to feed that population? Now, why would China or Korea be interested in Ukraine? Well, Ukraine is simply a country that can continue to increase its exports year upon year. Last year, Ukraine produced 66 million tons of grains, of which 40 million was exported. 66 million is 10% more than the previous year. This year might be a bit less because of crop conditions, etc., but still will be a very large year. So Ukraine is truly viewed as the breadbasket, I would say, of the world today. It's the second largest exporter in the world. In the next 10 years, could become number one after, in exceeding export potential of the United States, which is the largest exporter in the world. So, of course, highly dense populations that have challenges growing enough food. China is one of them. Korea is another. But there are a number of countries that cannot simply sustain. They have to import, are interested in developing businesses or investing in businesses in large exporting and producing countries such as Ukraine. So that's why we were there, and that's why they're interested.
That's an amazing statement to hear from John, that in a few years, perhaps Ukraine could be the biggest agricultural product exporter in the world, bigger than the United States, which is, again, a real agricultural powerhouse. You mentioned China. We're all thinking about the big Silk Road. I'd like to ask all of our panelists, what do you think about the Silk Road in Ukraine? Is this real? Where is it going to go? Mykola, any thoughts?
Look, we see great potential in China, huge potential. And we have been working with Chinese companies for years. We did plenty of visits to talk to companies, to funds. I could even mention here that it was a huge Chinese private equity fund which was very keen to invest into Astarta at a certain stage, and we still keep contact with them. So it's a lot of opportunities. Among other things, I would like to mention that recently our company has got certification for supply of sugar beet pulp to China. And one thing is that it took for us 4 years. 4 years to get this paper. So it's a very strict control and a lot of bureaucracy. I mean, I'm not judging whether in good sense or bad sense. It's a huge interest in China in organic and non-GMO products. It's a huge interest. And one thing which we were talking, it's creation of a chain of products which will go to China and which include milk, baby food. One thing which is missing in our I mean, not precisely a startup, but Ukraine's agriculture cooperation with China now is that it seems to me that Chinese companies are still not ready to do major investments into Ukraine because of risk perception. And as soon as these things will improve, we might see a lot of very interesting projects. Thank you.
If we look at the possibility of agricultural export to China, of course they are large. Many of them are already done indirectly by Hong Kong. But still this direction will increase, and I don't believe that any logistics or other problems can influence these directions. Anyway, China is going to cooperate more and more with Ukraine due to many reasons, and not only due to the level of population they have there. First of all, Ukrainian agriculture in different segments can produce very price competitive products. That's our main advantage. By different circumstances, but we are really cost efficient or cost competitive, and this means that the trade of agricultural products to China and to Far East region of Asia will increase, despite all the geopolitical and other issues. Of course, these macro and geopolitical issues can influence the speed of this trade between us, of its increase, but anyway, I would say that it's inevitable process, and it will move and increase step by step and year by year.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that. Ukraine is very cost competitive for many reasons: low labor costs, large field sizes, introducing new technologies. But Ukraine is also competitive in spite of the fact that Ukraine is not subsidizing farms. I mean, to a very small extent. Whatever subsidies we had were lost when the VAT special regime was eliminated for most Ukrainian farms, for crop producers. So we are forced to become very competitive. That's why, as Mykola mentioned, we work on our costs, etc. I wanted to mention one other thing is one of the problems of becoming a very large exporting country for Ukraine is the challenge of logistics. Ukraine has a huge challenge in front of itself. Ukraine does not have enough storage capacity or throughput capacity to be able to manage growing much further. we are missing probably about 15 million tons of inland storage capacity. This requires very large investment. Ukraine does not have enough grain carts, as we saw from the problems of last year of shortage of grain carts, inability to deliver products on time to the ports. Ukraine doesn't have enough locomotives, maneuvering locomotives, to move those grain carts to an elevator and away from the elevator. So there are some significant logistical challenges for Ukraine as it continues to grow.
Claude, what do you think about the Silk Road, and what are the big challenges to expand your part of the industry?
First of all, I would like to insist on the fact that we are oriented on the domestic market. We are, again, a small company. We focus mainly at the moment on retail market, the local market. Of course, we understand that it's probably not the best moment to do it because of all the geopolitical issues. Our bet, however, is that we will be able to establish recognized brand. It will take us little time, and once the country will have stabilized, we will be here. So we are really here for the long term. Probably it would be easier for us to do as many focus on export, because Ukraine has for sure a lot of huge advantages. But our bet is precisely to be on this domestic market that has been to some extent forgotten, especially during the last 2 years. Many importers, for example, reduce the quality of their product, and as we are on organic level, we have probably and by far the highest quality of product that you can find in Ukraine, and therefore some of our clients, they turn to us not necessarily because we are organic, but because we have a high quality product. In addition, we are also looking at possibilities to invest in the production. Initially, our target was to go into production very quickly. Unfortunately, the few attempts that we started proved to be a little bit more complicated than we expected. Therefore, we will take for sure more time to go into production. And I would like to add something about investment in general. This is for sure that the country needs investors, but I would say that the country doesn't need only money, they need also experts. If you just bring money and expect this money to become profitable by itself, our experience is that it's better not to do it. It's really necessary to be heavily involved and bring expertise.
Thank you very, very much, Claude. We have a few minutes left, and I'd like to open the panel to the audience now for questions and answers. Do we have any questions for anyone? Questions anywhere? We have a gentleman there. I'm not sure if there's one of the ladies in the back can bring a microphone, or no? Okay, a microphone is coming.
John, I'll give this back so you can maybe answer. Steve, thank you. I'm Jim Brook, editor of the Ukraine Business Journal. John, I was very interested in what you said about the possibility of Ukraine displacing the United States. And could you clarify that a little bit? Are we talking about in grain exports? Are we talking about general agricultural exports? Wheat, corn, soy? Could you clarify a little bit on that?
I didn't mean to infer that Ukraine can beat the United States in exports. No, we're talking about grain exports. Today, the United States exports somewhere around 66 to 70 million tons every year of grains, corn, soy, wheat, barley, etc. Ukraine exports about 40 million, but that number is growing significantly. United States' ability to export more is sort of limited because its production potential, or let's call it organic potential, to grow more it's maybe a growing curve, but it's kind of decreasing in its growth. Ukraine today can produce organically probably twice as much as it produces today. So if the wheat is at, let's say, 3.5 tons, Ukraine is probably a 5 or 6 ton wheat producer. So that's why, and plus Ukraine also has probably about 5-8 million hectares that's not even being operated today that could be operated. So there is this organic potential, there is this investment that's needed. It was mentioned earlier, about $5 billion per year that's needed to invest in the agricultural economy. But the sheer potential for Ukraine to grow is there. And you can see it from the exports of last year. And it just continues increasing. The production capacity of Ukraine continues to increase.
Any other questions from the audience for our panel today? Okay. Well, I'm going to finish this panel and with a flash question for each one of our panelists. If they can give the quick answer and then a one-line explanation why. And the flash question is, Ukraine agriculture for the next few years, up, the same, or down, and why? Taras, well, actually, we'll do it with Mykola first, and we'll go down the line. Mykola, your answer, please.
It's definitely up. The only thing is the weather factor, but it's not necessarily like just a line up. It could be a fluctuation, but technologies are improving, people are getting better, companies are attracting investments, so it's 100% up.
Wow, 100% up. That's very, very encouraging. Okay, Taras, your view?
200% up, despite the weather conditions. And first of all, again, because still lots of under-realized potential, which is realized and realized each year. We still see new investments in processing, in integration, in creating new products. So new domestic investments. So first of all, because of the domestic investments, if in short term, 3 years, definitely up.
Up. Go to a supermarket in Ukraine today. Go to Silpo, okay? Look how many vegetables and fruits and meat products and processed meat products are now of Ukrainian origin compared to 5 years ago. You'll see a big difference. So definitely up.
Thank you, John. And Claude?
I would only speak for organic sector, and of course, heavily up, but this is very easy because it's organic and it's going up everywhere in the world.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. It's up, up, up. And we started the panel feeling optimistic, and we're finishing the panel today feeling confirmed that our 4 expert speakers all feel that this is one very exciting sector to be in and to follow in the future. Thank you all for joining us for the agricultural sector today. And just for housekeeping purposes, in about 10 minutes, we will begin the energy sector panel. So thank you very, very much again, and thank you to all of our panelists.